What if I told you that every moment of your life you've been sending out a signal into the universe, a silent, invisible broadcast shaping everything you attract, repel, experience, and become? Not through superstition, not through wishful thinking, but through energy. And I don't mean that in a poetic, symbolic way. I mean it literally. Everything you see, touch, feel, and even think is made of energy vibrating at different frequencies. Your body, your emotions, your beliefs, your breath, all of it pulses with a frequency that either creates coherence or chaos in the reality around you. This isn't some new age metaphor. This is the root code of existence, the base operating system behind the illusion of solid matter. And once you grasp that truth, once you stop thinking of energy as a concept and start understanding it as a blueprint, something irreversible happens. You can never look at your life the same way again. You begin to see that every argument, every breakthrough, every setback or miracle you've experienced was a mirror reflecting the signal you were emitting at that time. You weren't reacting to reality. You were generating it. And until now, you may not have realized the depth of your own influence, but your energy field has never been neutral. It's always been active, always sending instructions into the invisible matrix that surrounds you. And here's the secret no one taught you. If you don't broadcast your frequency consciously, it gets broadcast for you, by your fears, by your conditioning, by everything unresolved and unclaimed within you. Most people never realize this. They live reactive lives, wondering why everything feels random, why opportunity seems to miss them, why their relationships feel hollow, or their dreams always stay just out of reach. They think it's bad luck, or fate, or that life is just hard. But in truth, it's energy misalignment. They're tuned to the wrong station, and they don't even know it. What if the signal you're sending is the very reason things haven't changed yet? For centuries, this truth was only whispered in mystery schools, cloaked in religious symbolism, or buried beneath layers of metaphor. Ancient civilizations weren't primitive, far from it. They were master engineers of consciousness, builders of monuments that still defy modern science, keepers of energetic laws encoded in architecture, language, and ritual. The pyramids, the temples, the star maps carved into stone, they weren't decorations, they were energetic devices, portals designed to harmonize human beings with universal frequency. In Egypt, the priests understood how sound altered the human field. In India, the rishis recorded breath sequences that could elevate your entire frequency in minutes. The Mayans aligned their lives with celestial cycles, because they knew those cycles weren't just symbolic, they were energetic tides that influenced consciousness itself. They didn't separate science from spirit, because they knew there was no difference. Energy was the bridge, and they passed that knowledge through lineage, through ritual, through encoded language meant only for those ready to understand it. But something changed. Over time, that sacred knowledge was stolen, diluted, or erased. Institutions rose up to replace experience with obedience. You were told to worship power instead of become it, to look outward instead of within, and slowly, your connection to energy, right to, your native sovereign right to create your reality, was buried under systems of control. Not by accident, but by design, because a human being who understands energy can't be controlled. A human being who learns to shape their frequency becomes unpredictable, limitless. And that is the greatest threat to the systems that profit from your powerlessness. They don't need to enslave you with chains when they can do it with beliefs. They don't have to lock you in a cage when they can trap you in a frequency, one that keeps you chasing, doubting, craving, and conforming. But the moment you wake up to the truth, the moment you realize that the world around you is just a feedback loop of the world within you, everything changes. You stop asking why life is happening to you and start asking what energy you're bringing to life. You stop trying to fix external problems and begin to tune your internal frequency. Because now you know that frequency is what creates form. And when your frequency changes, the outer world has no choice but to follow. Let that sink in. Your energy field is not passive. It is a dynamic transmitter and receiver. Every thought is a ripple. Every emotion is a wave. And just like a radio antenna, the stronger and clearer your broadcast, the more powerfully the universe reflects it back. This is why the ancient masters spoke in riddles. Not to confuse you, but to protect the truth from those who would misuse it. They knew that energy is neutral. It responds to intention, and without clarity, intention can become destruction. You've felt this before, even if you didn't have the words for it. The way certain people walk into a room and change the atmosphere without speaking. The way you just know when someone is angry, even if their face is calm. The way your own energy dips when you spend too long in the wrong environment. You're not imagining that. You're perceiving energy. You've always been perceiving it. You just haven't been trained to command it. But that's about to change. This script isn't about theory. It's about awakening the part of you that already knows. The part that remembers how powerful you really are. Before the noise, before the programming, before you forgot. And if you're still watching, it means you're ready to remember. Because deep down, you've always known there was something more. You've felt the pull, you've seen the signs. And now, you're standing at the edge of a truth that will undo everything you've been taught about your limits. A truth ancient initiates gave their lives to protect. That your reality is not fixed, it is fluid, moldable, sculpted by the energy you emit and the consciousness you carry. And if you're brave enough to master that energy, to shape it deliberately, to command it with precision, there is no dream, no healing, no transformation that is beyond your reach. The question is, will you step into that power? Or will you keep letting someone else broadcast your life for you? The choice, and the frequency, is yours. What if I told you there's a book so powerful, so precise in its description of how energy shapes reality, that entire empires were built around hiding it, not burning it, not destroying it, just burying it beneath metaphor, misdirection, and mistranslation. Because if you knew what was in it, if you really knew, you wouldn't need permission, credentials, or gatekeepers to shift your life at the level of matter itself. You'd become uncontrollable. And that, more than anything, is why they kept it secret. It's called the Corpus Hermeticum, and for over 2,000 years it sat quietly behind the thrones of kings, behind the robes of priests, behind the doors of universities. It didn't scream for attention, it whispered. To those who could hear it, it was a revelation. To those in power, it was a threat, because this wasn't just another mystical manuscript filled with vague poetry. This was a manual, a precise set of energetic instructions for how to will your inner frequency so deliberately that the outer world had no choice but to reorganize itself in response. And for centuries, it was hidden in plain sight. But in 1460, something happened that shook the foundations of Europe's elite. Cosimo de' Medici, one of the richest and most powerful men alive, received a rare gift, a Greek manuscript smuggled out of Macedonia. When his scholars told him what it was, he ordered every political meeting, every business deal, every personal engagement to stop. He didn't delay, he didn't delegate. He redirected the entire focus of his court toward translating this single book. Wars were postponed, trades were shelved, time froze. Because Cosimo knew something most people didn't. Knowledge this old, buried this deep, was never meant for everyone. The result? Within 6 months of its translation, the Medici family's wealth and influence doubled. Coincidence? That's what the history books want you to think. But when you understand what was really in the Corpus Hermeticum, you start to see a pattern that repeats through every age. A pattern of power built not on gold or armies, but on consciousness. I9. Specifically, the mastery of it. The texts, attributed to Hermes Trismegistus, ATDR, a mythical fusion of the Egyptian god Thoth and the Greek god Hermes, ATDR, weren't written for entertainment. They weren't even written to convince. They were written for those ready to see. In them, Hermes speaks to his students in coded conversations, describing the true nature of the universe, the mind, and the field of energy that connects them. He makes a radical claim. See, everything you see is shaped by unseen forces, and those forces are not distant or random, they are responding to you. That message was dangerous. It undermined every institution that claimed to be the sole bridge between man and the divine. Because if the divine is within you, and energy responds to your will, why would you need a priest? A king? A system? You wouldn't. And that terrified them. So the book was hidden in archives, misquoted in translations, and selectively edited to make it look harmless. The version most people know today is like reading a map with all the roads removed. But the initiates knew better. Across time, the Corpus Hermeticum found its way into the hands of those who could understand its true purpose, not as a relic, but as a guide. Newton studied it in secret while giving the world calculus and gravity. He was fascinated with alchemy and the concept of transmuting energy, not just base metals into gold, but lower consciousness into higher awareness. He never spoke publicly about what he found in those ancient texts. He didn't have to. His life was the evidence. Tesla kept a copy by his bedside. The man responsible for much of the modern electrical world wasn't just obsessed with technology, he was obsessed with frequency, vibration, and the relationship between thought and energy. He once said, "If you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration." Sound familiar? It should. That's Hermeticism, distilled into one sentence. Carl Jung, the father of analytical psychology, also immersed himself in the Hermetic writings. He saw them as the psychological foundation for all spiritual systems. In fact, he believed that true transformation wasn't external DDs. It was internal alignment with the archetypal energies described in ancient texts, like the Corpus Hermeticum. He didn't just study it, he wove it into the fabric of modern psychology, disguising mystical truths in clinical language. But here's the part no one talks about: why these men, with all their knowledge and influence, chose to keep it quiet. It wasn't fear, it was respect. They understood that the masses weren't ready, that giving raw, energetic truth to a scattered, unfocused mind would be like handing a match to someone sitting in gasoline. The power to bend reality is not inherently good or evil, it just is. And if misused, it can create chaos just as easily as beauty. So they preserved it, silently, carefully, like a torch passed from one soul to the next in the dark. And now it's in front of you. This book doesn't just speak about energy, it shows you how to shape it. It tells you that every thought you think, every feeling you allow to settle in your body, is a frequency. That frequency broadcasts into a field. That field reflects it back as experiences, circumstances, and outcomes. You've seen it in flashes, those moments where your intention and reality snapped into alignment. A sudden breakthrough, a coincidence too perfect to ignore, a door that opened just as you reached for it. That wasn't luck. That was contact. A moment where your energy spoke clearly enough to move the world around you. The Corpus Hermeticum teaches how to make that contact intentional, how to purify your signal so there's no interference, no contradiction, just clarity, coherence, and command. That's why it had to be buried. Because a human being who knows how to shape energy is not a subject, they're a sovereign. And sovereigns don't need systems, they create their own. You weren't meant to find this book. But you did. And that means something. It means you're ready to remember what they worked so hard to make you forget, that the same force which animates the stars also pulses through your veins. And when you learn to know it and will it, not as a theory but as an embodiment, you don't just read about miracles, you become one. Now let's go deeper. Look around you. Everything you see, every object, every texture, every sensation, was once nothing more than a thought. Not just the buildings or the clothes or the technology, but your relationships, your identity, even the problems you keep running into. They didn't just appear randomly. They manifested through a process that begins long before the physical world takes form. And at the heart of that process is energy. But not the kind of energy you've been taught in school. Not electricity or calories or heat. This is the energy beneath all of it. The energy that obeys something far more powerful than motion or mechanics. It obeys consciousness. Here's the truth you were never told. Energy is not passive. It does not simply float through space, waiting to be noticed. It responds, it listens, it mirrors. And the one thing it always responds to is will. your will, your focused, deliberate, conscious intent. Every thought you think is a command. Every feeling you sustain is a frequency. You don't just experience energy, you program it. And whether or not you realize it, you're already doing it all the time. You've been broadcasting since the moment you were born. The only question is whether your broadcast is intentional or scattered. Whether you're shaping reality on purpose, or allowing subconscious patterns to shape it for you. This is where everything begins to shift. When you understand that energy responds to will, the entire idea of being a victim to circumstance starts to dissolve. You begin to see that your life, all of it, is a reflection of your inner alignment. Not just your beliefs, but your state, your vibration, your emotional resonance. This is why two people can walk into the same situation and have entirely different outcomes. One attracts opportunity, the other meets resistance. It's not luck, it's not magic, it's frequency. It's the silent but precise dialogue between your internal world and the field around you. When your internal signal is scattered, done. When your mind is filled with fear, doubt, contradiction, the energy field reflects that noise. Things misfire, opportunities slide past. Circumstances feel random. But when your signal is coherent, when your mind and emotions align around a clear intention, the field doesn't hesitate. It responds. This isn't a belief system, it's law. And the ancient Hermeticists knew this long before science caught up. They called it the law of mentalism. All is mind. That was the first and most fundamental principle of Hermetic philosophy. MT2. That everything in existence is a manifestation of consciousness. That matter is not primary, but secondary. That the universe itself is a mental construct, shaped and reshaped by thought. If this sounds impossible, remember that even modern quantum physics has stumbled upon the same conclusion, though they phrase it differently. They discovered that at the subatomic level, matter doesn't exist in a fixed state until it is observed. It exists as probability, as potential, and the act of observation collapses the wave into form. But what is observation, really? It's not just seeing, it's focused awareness. And what is focused awareness, if not will? When you truly grasp this, everything changes. Because you start to see your mind not as a private theater where ideas flicker in and out, but as a command center. A transmitter, a sculpting tool. Your thoughts are not idle, they are pulses of energy. Your emotions are not accidents, they are amplifiers. And when your thoughts and emotions align, they create a coherent frequency that imprints itself onto the field around you. That imprint, that broadcast, determines what takes form in your reality. You've been using this system your entire life, whether you realized it or not. Every time you held a belief so strongly that the world started confirming it. Every time you worried about something so intensely that it actually showed up. Every time you imagined a breakthrough, and then watched it unfold. These weren't flukes, they were evidence. Evidence that you are not just a participant in the energy field. You are an author, and like any good author, you have a tool. That tool is your mind. But the mind is not a monolith. It's not just thoughts. It's memory, attention, focus, belief, emotion, and visualization all working together. When these elements are scattered or unconscious, your energy is too. But when they are brought into alignment, into stillness, into precision, you gain access to something extraordinary. You gain the ability to command reality, not from force, but from resonance. This is why most people never see results from surface-level affirmations or casual manifestations. They think a thought once, then contradict it 10 times with anxiety, disbelief, or self-doubt. They don't understand that energy responds to the strongest signal, not the loudest one, but the most consistent. And consistency comes from coherence, from aligning your entire being around a single outcome. That's not wishing, that's will. Wishing is passive, willing is active. Wishing hopes something changes, willing decides it will. And that decision, correlati, when it is felt fully, believed deeply, and reinforced emotionally, becomes the command that reality answers to. This is the secret behind every mystic, every visionary, every so-called miracle. They didn't beg the universe, they impressed their intention into it. They didn't hope for alignment, they became alignment. You are capable of this, you always have been, but no one trained you. No one told you that your mind is programmable, that your subconscious isn't a mysterious realm, but a system running outdated code. That every belief you hold is a filter, and that filter determines how energy flows through your life. Change the filter, and the flow changes. Reprogram the system, and the output shifts. This is why ancient initiates spent years mastering their inner world before being given access to external techniques. They knew the power of a misaligned mind. They knew that if your internal frequency is chaotic, no amount of ritual or visualization will override it. The field listens to coherence. It mirrors integrity. Not moral integrity, but energetic integrity, ISA, the degree to which your thoughts, emotions, and beliefs are unified. So ask yourself, what are you broadcasting right now? What is your dominant thought pattern? What emotion has been living inside your chest the longest? What belief do you keep repeating, even when it hurts you? These are not just private feelings. They are blueprints. They are scripts being handed to the energy field, moment by moment, shaping what comes next. And here's the best part. You can change them. Right now, you can shift your energy by shifting your focus. You can begin to will instead of wish. You can begin to feel your power as something real, tangible, and transformative. Because it is. The energy is not waiting for permission, it's waiting for clarity. And when that clarity arrives, the field doesn't hesitate. It responds. Every time. There's a reason ancient texts were written in metaphor. Not because the truth was vague, but because it was too powerful to be spoken directly. The old masters knew that truth, when stripped of poetic disguise, becomes explosive, literal, actionable. And when something becomes actionable, it becomes dangerous. That's exactly why one sentence, just one line hidden in an ancient manuscript, was quietly edited, softened, and hidden behind centuries of translation. Because if you understood it, not intellectually but viscerally, everything around you would start to bend. This isn't philosophy. This is the mechanics of reality. The sentence is this: to know it and to will it is to move the world. Now let that sink in. At first glance, it doesn't sound revolutionary. It doesn't seem like the kind of phrase that would terrify empires or provoke the guardians of doctrine. And yet, for hundreds of years, that line was scrubbed, replaced with something poetic but inert. As above, so below. That's the version you've probably seen on t-shirts and coffee mugs. It sounds mystical, balanced, harmless, but here's the truth. That line was a decoy, a distraction, something pretty enough to echo without ever pointing toward its real power. The original version wasn't about balance, it was about command. To know it and to will it is to move the world. Read that again slowly. Not interpret, not meditate, move. This wasn't a vague spiritual insight. It was an energetic lever, and the moment you understand what it's really saying, you'll understand why so many people spend their lives broadcasting weak signals into the universe, hoping for change that never arrives. Let's start with the first word, know. In modern language, we confuse knowledge with information. We think knowing is something that happens in the brain, the result of reading enough books, watching enough videos, collecting enough data. But Hermetic knowledge is different. When the old texts say, to know, they mean direct experience, not belief, not theory, embodiment. You don't know fire by reading about it. You know it when it burns your skin. That kind of knowing leaves no room for doubt. It anchors itself in your nervous system. It becomes part of who you are. You feel it in your breath, your bones, your silence. The Hermetic writers were telling you that this kind of knowing, the experience of being made of the same essence that shapes the cosmos, is the first key. Not a belief that you are connected to the universe, but the knowing that you are the universe, condensed into a body for a moment in time, that your thoughts aren't bouncing around in a vacuum, they are sculpting the very substance of reality. But knowing, on its own, is passive. It makes you aware, but it doesn't make you a creator. That's where the second key comes in, will. To know it and to will it. Here's where most people fall short. They may glimpse the truth. They may even have mystical experiences that show them the field of energy, the interconnected web of consciousness, the spark of the divine within. But they don't will anything. They don't command. They stay in observation. They drift. And so their energy, no matter how awakened, disperses into the noise. Will is not about desire. It's not about hoping or wishing or visualizing once and waiting for the universe to comply. Will is sustained direction, focus sharpened by discipline. It's the force that turns a spark into a flame. When Hermetic texts speak of will, they're referring to the ability to hold an inner frequency so precisely, so consistently, that the field has no choice but to reflect it back. It's not that the field needs convincing. The field doesn't argue, it responds. The question is, what are you commanding? Now put those two together, knowing and willing. This is where the magic happens. The original line doesn't say you might move the world. It doesn't say you influence reality. It says you move it. Why? Because when knowledge and will align, your energy becomes coherent, clean, undiluted by contradiction. And when your inner frequency is that sharp, the field organizes around it with mathematical precision. This was the secret. This was the sentence that had to be diluted. So what did they do? They changed it. Instead of telling you how to command the field, they gave you a riddle. As above, so below. It sounds deep, and on one level, it is. It hints at the mirroring nature of reality. But it doesn't tell you what to do. It doesn't give you the method. It gives you a metaphor. And in doing so, it neuters the truth. It makes it poetic, safe, something you can admire without ever applying. The moment you replace to know and to will with as above, so below, you've moved from action to observation, from creation to contemplation, and that's exactly what the gatekeepers wanted. A population that sees the patterns but forgets their power, that recites slogans about the universe while living like victims of circumstance. Translation, in this case, became the perfect weapon. No need for fire, no need for censorship, just a slight shift in phrasing, and an entire generation forgets that it ever had a lever in its hand. And this didn't happen once. It happened repeatedly, across centuries, across cultures, subtle edits, reinterpretations, phrases smoothed out to fit the dominant narrative of control. Ask yourself, why would a sentence so small, so quiet, be altered in every major edition of the Corpus Hermeticum? Why would scribes, monks, and translators feel the need to take something clear and make it vague? Because clarity is threatening. If the masses understood that their thoughts were electrical currents, their feelings magnetic fields, and their will a tuning fork that shifts matter, the systems of power would collapse. Control would vanish overnight, fear would become irrelevant, and so the sentence was scrubbed, replaced, buried in commentary. But now it's back, and you're reading it, feeling it, beginning to remember. To know it and to will it is to move the world. As an of then froms of night. This isn't poetry, this is a formula, a direct set of instructions written in a time when language still carried magic, before words became cheap, before truth was wrapped in layers of safe interpretation. This sentence wasn't designed to inspire, it was designed to activate. And now, the choice is yours. You can read it once and move on, like so many do, or you can sit with it, breathe with it. Let it crawl into your spine and rewrite the way you see everything. Because once you understand this, you stop asking the world for permission. You stop looking for signs, for proof, for validation. You realize the only thing standing between you and the reality you want is the coherence of your signal. Not your worthiness, not your luck, not your past. Just your ability to know and to will. They softened the words, but they didn't erase the truth. It's always been waiting. Waiting for someone like you to remember how to use it. There's a sacred formula that ancient initiates guarded with their lives. Not because it was complicated, but because it was powerful. Too powerful for a mind not yet disciplined, not yet anchored in truth. That formula wasn't a ritual. It wasn't a chant or a potion. It was a principle, hidden in plain sight, woven into the earliest spiritual texts, encoded in symbols, whispered in mystery schools across Egypt, Greece and India. Two forces, one outcome, knowing and willing. Together, they formed what the Hermetic masters called the royal art, ITC, the divine process of shaping reality from the inside out. This is not about manifesting in the way pop culture has packaged it. This isn't about mood boards, lucky charms, or repeating phrases while hoping the universe hears you. This is not about begging for blessings. The royal art is not about superstition. It is a science of consciousness, a disciplined, energetic alignment between the invisible and the visible, a recognition that the universe doesn't grant wishes. It responds to coherence. If you've ever wondered why some of your desires never came to pass, even though you wanted them badly, this is why. Wishing is scattered. Wanting without knowing creates friction. Hoping without willing creates delay. The field you exist in doesn't respond to desperation. It responds to certainty. It reflects who you are being, not what you are craving. That's the razor-thin difference that separates unconscious creators from conscious ones. You don't manifest by asking the universe to give you what you don't yet believe is possible. You manifest by becoming the vibration of the outcome, and aligning your inner reality so precisely that the outer world has no choice but to mirror it. To know is to become, to will is to command, and when those two forces unite within you, reality bends. Knowing is not intellectual. It's not about memorizing teachings or believing hard enough. Knowing is the felt, lived experience that what you desire is already yours, that it exists, not somewhere far away, but here, embedded in the field, waiting for your frequency to match it. It is an inner stillness, a quiet authority that says, "This is mine," without force, without argument. It is a state of inner union, where thought, emotion, and belief converge into a single current. Willing, on the other hand, is the application of that current. It is the focused intent that presses your inner reality into the mold of the external world. It is not effort in the traditional sense. It is not force. It is not obsession. It is a steady flame, a repetition of intent, carried not just in the mind, but in every breath, every word, every step. When you will something, you are not chasing it, you are declaring it, not once, but until it forms. This is the royal art, RTW died, the marriage of inner knowing and sustained intent. It is what the alchemists were really talking about when they spoke of transmutation, not turning lead into gold, but turning thought into matter, potential into form, imagination into experience. The great work was always you. The philosopher's stone was always your awareness. Most people only ever use one side of the formula. They know what they want, but don't believe they can have it. Or, they believe it's possible but don't focus their will. They scatter their energy in dozens of directions, wondering why nothing sticks, but knowing without willing is inert, and willing without knowing is blind. It is only when these two powers align that creation begins. And here's the secret most don't realize. The universe doesn't resist you. It mirrors you. Always. It does not judge your desire. It does not weigh your worth. It does not decide whether or not you're deserving. It simply reflects the signal you are sending, clearly, precisely, and without bias. If you live in fear, it mirrors fear. If you live in abundance, it reflects abundance. If you live in contradiction, wanting one thing, but believing another, it reflects the contradiction. This is why the ancients spoke of purification, not in the moral sense, but in the energetic one. They understood that to manifest clearly, your field must be clean, your will must be undivided. Your knowing must be stable, otherwise your signal becomes static, and static scrambles your command. Imagine trying to tune a radio to a specific station, but your hand is shaking on the dial. That's what most people do with their energy. They say one thing, feel another, and act out of a third. They visualize abundance but vibrate scarcity. They declare love but carry resentment. The signal becomes noisy, and the field reflects the confusion. But when you know what you are, and you will what you know, the signal sharpens. The field listens. Reality organizes. It doesn't always happen instantly, but it always begins. And that beginning is sacred, because in that moment, you stop being a reactor to circumstance. You become a sculptor of possibility. The royal art requires discipline, not the kind that comes from force, but from devotion. Devotion to inner alignment, devotion to truth, devotion to the vision that lives inside you and refuses to die, no matter how many times the world tells you it's impossible. That vision is not fantasy, it's memory, a glimpse of what's already written in the field, waiting to be unlocked by your frequency. You don't need permission to wield this art. You don't need a title or a guru or a lifetime of training. All you need is to remember what's already inside you, the knowing, the willing, the ability to walk into a room, into a life, into a future, and know, this is mine. I don't hope for it. I don't beg for it. I command it into form through the integrity of my being. This isn't arrogance, it's alignment. It's not ego, it's mastery. The kind of mastery that humbles you, because you realize that the power you're tapping into isn't just yours. It's the same power that spins galaxies, that opens flowers, that breathes through every atom in existence. You're not separate from that power. You are that power, in human form. And the moment you know it, not think it, not wish it, but know it, and apply your will accordingly, the game changes. So the question becomes, are you willing to know? Are you ready to will? Because the field is not holding anything back from you. It's simply waiting for you to become precise enough to receive. The difference between the people who quietly shape the world and those who feel constantly shaped by it isn't talent. It's not even access. It's focus. Silent, directed, undisturbed focus. The kind of focus that bends energy into coherence. The kind that doesn't rely on motivation or hype, but taps into something far older. A knowing that reality is not a fixed backdrop, but a responsive field. That's the secret the elite don't speak about openly, but practice daily, because while most of the world is trapped in scattered thought, emotional noise, and reactive behavior, they are crafting reality with surgical precision. Look closely, and you'll start to see the pattern. The highest performers in every field, hedge fund managers, Olympic athletes, tech moguls, artists at the top of their game, all exhibit one common trait that defies randomness: energetic alignment. It's not luck, it's not just skill, it's not even just hard work. It's the ability to tune their inner state so cleanly that the outer world begins to synchronize with it. They aren't reacting to life, they're instructing it. Imagine a hedge fund manager moments before executing a billion-dollar trade. While analysts scramble and screens flicker with numbers, the real decision is happening in the field. Their breathing slows. Their awareness sharpens. They're not just thinking, they're broadcasting. And that internal clarity carves through the noise like a laser. They're not making a guess, they're sending a command. The data, the charts, the analysis, those are just tools. The real shift happens in the invisible field they've learned to shape with their focus. Think about athletes, not the average ones, the elite, the ones who make impossible moves look effortless. Before they step into the arena, they don't just train their bodies, they train their frequency. The zone isn't a mystery to them, it's a cultivated state, a tuned field. They rehearse it with breathwork. They visualize it so clearly that their neurons fire as if it's already happened. When they perform, their energy is so focused, so coherent, that the environment adjusts. Defenders move slower, time stretches, opportunities appear. They don't force outcomes, they harmonize with them. Then there are artists, visionaries, people who pull ideas from the ether and translate them into books, songs, inventions, movements. They don't sit around waiting for inspiration, they attune to it. Their studios are temples, their rituals, sacred. They enter states of flow where hours disappear and creation seems to pour from a source beyond the mind. But it's not random. It's the result of collapsing all distractions, doubts, and contradictions into one clean signal. Repair it, and that signal becomes form. This is the power of energetic coherence. Coherence isn't about working harder. It's about aligning all your energy, thoughts, emotions, beliefs, into a unified field that transmits one message to the universe. When your field is coherent, it acts like a magnet. It pulls in the people, resources, timing, and momentum you need. Not because you're lucky, but because you've stopped broadcasting conflicting frequencies. Now, contrast that with how most people live. They want abundance, but hold beliefs rooted in scarcity. They visualize success, but carry emotions of doubt and fear. They set goals, but spend their days scattered across 1,000 distractions. Their energy field is like a broken radio signal, full of static, distortion, and interference. And so what does the universe reflect? A jumbled mess, false starts, missed chances, confusion. They aren't being punished, they're just experiencing the reflection of their own incoherent broadcast. Energy doesn't lie. It doesn't respond to what you say you want. It responds to what you are. And if what you are is fragmented, conflicted, reactive, one-turned, the field will mirror that fragmentation back into your life. This is why intention alone isn't enough. Without focus, intention dissolves. Without emotional congruence, desire collapses. Without consistency, even clarity fades into noise. The elite know this. That's why they protect their focus like it's their most valuable asset, because it is. Look at how they start their day, often in stillness. Not out of luxury, but necessity. They control what enters their mind. They filter their environment. They minimize emotional triggers. They don't multitask. They delegate decisions that drain attention. They understand that every choice is a broadcast, every action, an energetic signature. So they guard their signal, relentlessly. It's not just about mindset. It's about energetic hygiene. They clear emotional residue. They avoid chaotic environments. They process triggers quickly. They invest in coaches, trainers, breathwork experts, even neurofeedback specialists, IT, not just for performance, but for maintaining signal purity. Because they know that even a slight disruption in their internal field can ripple out into million-dollar consequences. Meanwhile, most people treat focus like a luxury, something they'll get around to when life calms down. But life doesn't calm down. Life reflects. And if you wait for external peace before cultivating internal coherence, you'll wait forever. The truth is, you're already using your energy field. Every moment of every day, it's transmitting. The only question is, are you doing it consciously? Or are you letting your fears, your past, your surroundings program it for you? When your energy is aligned, things shift without force. People start responding differently. Opportunities arrive faster. Coincidences pile up. You stop pushing and start pulling, not because life got easier, but because your signal got cleaner. But here's the part that's often overlooked. Coherence isn't a one-time decision. It's a daily discipline. It means choosing thoughts that support your vision, even when old habits pull you back. It means regulating your nervous system when chaos tempts you to react. It means committing to practices that align your field, breathwork, meditation, journaling, movement, not because they're trendy, but because they refine your frequency. This is the quiet work the elite are doing while others are seeking quick hacks and shortcuts. They're not chasing results. They're becoming the kind of person whose energy makes results inevitable. So the question becomes, how coherent is your field? What are you broadcasting right now? Not what you say, not what you want, but what you're being, because that's the language the field understands. And until you align with that, nothing truly changes. This is not about becoming someone new. It's about remembering who you were before the static took over, before the world trained you to scatter your power. Before you learned to split your focus to fit in, to please, to survive. The elite didn't become powerful because they had more energy than you. They became powerful because they directed it better. And now you can too. You don't need a billion-dollar portfolio to begin. You don't need Olympic medals or a studio in a skyscraper. All you need is the courage to reclaim your focus, to stop pouring energy into noise, to stop feeding patterns that keep you small, to become deliberate in your thoughts, your emotions, your breath, your presence, because once you do, something unlocks. You stop waiting for breakthroughs, you become the breakthrough. And the world, what it's sighing, the people, the timing, the success, they don't just respond, they orbit, because your energy is no longer a whisper lost in chaos, It's a signal. And that signal is unmistakable. There's something subtle but constant that drags at your energy. You've felt it before. That invisible weight that settles in your chest. The unexplainable heaviness after a conversation. The low-grade anxiety that doesn't seem to belong to you. You walk into a room, and your mood shifts. You scroll through your phone, and your energy crashes. You wake up tired, even after a full night's sleep, and you wonder what's wrong with you. But the truth is, most of the time, it's not you. It's your field. Your energy field, resonor, the electromagnetic bubble surrounding your body, is not a closed system. It's permeable, responsive, absorptive. It's constantly taking in signals from your environment, from other people, from your past. And unless you know how to clean it, seal it, and maintain it, it becomes cluttered with emotional residue, foreign projections, unconscious attachments, and energetic debris that slowly begins to override your natural frequency. Imagine your field like a house. If you never clean it, dust accumulates. If you never lock the doors, anyone can walk in. If you let the windows stay open during a storm, everything gets soaked. That's what happens to your energy when you move through life without hygiene. And just like physical hygiene keeps your body functioning clearly, energy hygiene keeps your field coherent and strong. Without it, your thoughts become muddy, your emotions misfire, your manifestations backfire, because no matter how much you visualize or affirm, if your field is leaking, you're losing signal. This is one of the most overlooked truths in spiritual practice. Everyone talks about manifestation and raising vibration, but almost no one teaches how to protect what you're building. Because the real reason your reality keeps slipping back to old patterns isn't just belief, it's energetic interference. It's the noise that clouds your frequency. The unprocessed grief from 5 years ago, the resentment you absorbed from your parents, the guilt you carry that isn't even yours, the energetic cords still tying you to people you haven't spoken to in years. This is what fragments your signal. And when your signal is fragmented, your will becomes weak, your knowing becomes foggy. You feel confused, reactive, disconnected from the clarity that once felt so alive. You begin to doubt yourself, not because your vision is wrong, but because your field is cluttered. So the first step to reclaiming your power is not to do more. It's to clear, to sweep, to seal. In the mystery schools of ancient civilizations, initiates were never allowed to engage in higher practices until they had mastered energy hygiene. Not just because it made their magic more effective, but because it protected their minds, their clarity, their will. The field was sacred, theirs, and you were responsible for maintaining it like a temple. That meant knowing how to clean it daily, how to scan it, how to fortify it against external influence. You can do this. You don't need a teacher or a secret lineage. You just need intention, discipline, and presence. Start with breath. Your breath is the first and most powerful tool you have for clearing static. With every inhale, you draw in fresh prana, life force energy. With every exhale, you release density, tension, residue. But most people breathe shallowly, unconsciously, as if surviving was enough. But when you bring awareness to your breath, it becomes a wand, a purifier. Find a quiet space. Sit with a straight spine. Inhale deeply through your nose, slow and steady. Hold for a few seconds. Then exhale through your mouth, imagining that you're releasing smoke, fog, or static from your body. Do this slowly, rhythmically, with full attention. As you exhale, imagine the residue leaving you, the doubt, the stress, the projections. Feel them evaporate with each breath. This isn't imagination, it's energetic precision. Your field is responding. Once you've cleared with breath, the next step is visualization. Visualization is not fantasy, it's a command to the field. Your subconscious does not distinguish between what is vividly imagined and what is physically seen. That's why visualization works, because the body and the field believe it's real. Close your eyes and see yourself surrounded by light. Not just soft, ambient glow. See a sphere, a cocoon, a shield of energy enveloping your entire body. It can be gold, white, violet, any color that feels powerful to you. See it pulsing gently, alive with intelligence. This is your energetic boundary. And as you visualize it, say silently or aloud, "Only that which serves my highest good may enter this space. Everything else is released now." Repeat it like a decree, not a request. This is your field. You are its gatekeeper. From this place, seal it. Sealing the field doesn't mean becoming rigid, it means becoming sovereign. Imagine the outer layer of your sphere thickening slightly, becoming more solid, more defined. Like tempered glass or a protective membrane, not a wall, but a filter. Energies that are incoherent, invasive, or draining bounce off. Energies that are aligned with truth, love, and clarity flow through. You're not isolating, you're curating. You're choosing what comes in and what doesn't. That's not selfish, that's mastery. As you practice this daily, something begins to shift. You'll notice you don't feel drained after certain conversations anymore. You won't absorb other people's anxiety so easily. You'll start catching projections before they land. You'll feel your intuition sharpen, your vision return. That's because your signal is getting clearer. Your energy isn't leaking. And when your energy isn't leaking, your will is stronger. Your knowing becomes stable. You become a more accurate transmitter, and the universe reflects your signal faster, cleaner, with less resistance. You may even find that people start reacting to you differently. They won't know why, but they'll feel the boundary. They'll sense the coherence. And without you saying a word, their energy will either align or exit. That's the power of a sealed field. It doesn't just protect you, it shapes the behavior of the world around you. There's one more layer to this that few understand: inner stillness. Not silence, stillness. The kind of presence that anchors you so deeply into your body that nothing external can pull you out of alignment. When you cultivate inner stillness, your field stops reacting. It begins commanding. Instead of absorbing energy, it starts broadcasting a coherent frequency so strong that it shapes environments, conversations, even outcomes. This stillness is built over time, through meditation, breath, movement, solitude. But it is the foundation of all spiritual clarity. The cleaner your field, the more potent your reality. The more sealed your boundary, the more effortless your manifestations. You don't need to force, you just need to align. You don't need to protect out of fear, you protect out of reverence. Reverence for your own energy, for your own clarity, for your own divine right to live a life sculpted by will, not shaped by noise. So ask yourself, where is your energy leaking? What conversations, apps, memories or relationships are still living rent-free in your field? What projections have you mistaken for truth? Begin there. Begin with the sweep, with the seal, and watch how fast your clarity returns. Energy hygiene is not a luxury. It's not optional. It's the foundation for everything else. You are not here to be a sponge. You are here to be a transmitter, and that starts with cleaning the instrument. Most people go their entire lives without realizing that their breath is more than just a function, it's a frequency device. A transmitter, a tuning dial. From the moment you're born, you begin to breathe, and from that very first inhale, you're interacting with the energy field that shapes everything. But no one teaches you what that really means. You're told how to breathe to survive, not how to breathe to create. And so you spend your life exhaling energy unconsciously, missing the opportunity to direct it with purpose. But the ancient masters knew something different. Across every spiritual tradition, in every culture that still remembered how the universe works, the breath wasn't casual, it was sacred. It was the bridge between form and formless, between the body and the field, between the human and the divine. They didn't treat breath as biology, they treated it as command. Because every inhale is an intake of possibility. Every exhale is a transmission of intention. When you breathe without awareness, your energy scatters. When you breathe with awareness, you start shaping the field around you with precision. It's not about the air, it's about the frequency riding on that air. And when you start consciously programming that frequency, everything begins to shift. There's a reason that every ancient school of initiation included breathwork as a foundational practice. In Hindu philosophy, the art of pranayama, 19, the regulation of breath, 19, wasn't just a calming exercise. It was a method for awakening prana, or life force. They believed that breath carries consciousness. That by controlling your breath, you weren't just relaxing your body, you were opening channels of energy, aligning your inner system with higher frequencies of existence. Specific breathing patterns were used to clear emotional blockages, awaken dormant power, and elevate awareness into realms that most people never touch. The Taoists had their own language for this, but the principle was the same. Breath was a bridge. They observed that when breath became shallow and unconscious, the body became rigid, the mind became anxious, and the energy became chaotic. But when breath was slow, deep, and rhythmic, the entire system harmonized, emotions balanced, thoughts clarified, the energy field aligned. They developed internal breathing techniques that allowed practitioners to circulate life force throughout their organs, refining the internal alchemy of the body into a vessel capable of holding higher consciousness. None of this was metaphorical. These were technologies, techniques passed down through generations, not for superstition, but for results. These practices were built on observation, and what they observed was this: your breath is a tool, and how you use that tool determines what kind of reality you're able to shape. Vibrational toning adds another layer. In this practice, breath meets sound, not in the form of words, but in pure frequency. When you exhale with a specific tone, a hum, a chant, a vibration, you're imprinting your breath with energy. That vibration moves through your bones, your tissues, your field. It tunes you like an instrument. You've probably felt this intuitively. That moment when you sigh deeply and feel your entire body release, or when you hum to yourself and something in you starts to settle. That's not a coincidence, that's resonance. That's your breath aligning with your frequency. Modern science is starting to catch up, slowly validating what the ancients already knew. Studies now show that conscious breathing can alter brainwave states, regulate the nervous system, and reduce inflammation, but those are just the surface-level effects. The deeper truth is this: your breath is your access point to the energy field. It's your way of speaking to the universe without words. A silent language, more powerful than any affirmation, because it bypasses the conscious mind and goes straight to the source. When you begin breathing with intention, you don't just feel different, you broadcast differently. Your field starts to carry a signal that is coherent, grounded, and magnetically attractive. People feel it before you speak. Opportunities begin to shift toward you. Challenges begin to dissolve, not because life got easier, but because you stopped emitting static and started sending out a clean, deliberate signal. But this kind of breath isn't automatic. It must be trained, cultivated, honored. You have to relearn what your body already knows but forgot: how to breathe like a creator, not a consumer. That means slowing down, becoming present, feeling each inhale as a gathering of power and each exhale as an act of release and creation. It means letting your breath lead your thoughts, instead of the other way around. When the breath becomes conscious, the mind has no choice but to follow, and in that stillness, in that spaciousness, new frequencies begin to emerge. One of the most profound shifts you can make in your daily life is to stop treating your breath as background noise. Make it the foreground, make it the guide. Before you react, breathe. Before you speak, breathe. Before you enter a room, take one breath to center your frequency. That 1 second of alignment can change the outcome of an entire conversation, an entire decision, an entire day. This is not just about peace, this is about power. You've been taught to externalize your power, to seek control in action, in force, in struggle. But the real control starts with the breath. Because your breath determines your state, and your state determines your field, and your field shapes your reality. The more you command your breath, the less you need to force outcomes, because your energy begins doing the work for you. Think of breath as the interface between your inner software and the outer hologram you experience. Every breath is either sending a clear signal of creation or a fuzzy signal of confusion. If your breathing is shallow and erratic, you're sending a message of stress, fear, and resistance. If your breathing is deep, rhythmic, and charged with intent, you're sending a message of trust, power, and clarity. The field picks up on this immediately. When you start working with your breath as an energetic instrument, everything becomes a practice. Every moment becomes a chance to return to center, to refine your signal, to sculpt your frequency. You're no longer drifting through experience. You're shaping it, one breath at a time. This is why the great masters didn't need to shout. Their breath did the speaking. Their energy walked into the room before they did, and people felt it. Not because of charisma or status, but because their field was alive, conscious, coherent. The breath was the engine behind that field. A silent force that shaped every encounter, every manifestation, every miracle. You don't have to become a monk to access this. You don't need robes or mantras or mountaintops. All you need is a breath. This breath, the one you're taking right now. Slow it down, deepen it. Feel the inhale gathering potential. Feel the exhale directing that potential into form. Do that over and over, until it becomes the way you live, until it becomes the way you create. Because when you master your breath, you're no longer a participant in reality. You become its architect. And every inhale becomes an act of remembering who you really are. Every exhale becomes a message to the universe. I know what I am. I know what I'm creating. And I command it with every breath I take. Reality is not fixed. It never has been. What you see around you, what you call your life, your circumstances, your relationships, your level of abundance, your health, your opportunities, all of it is a mirror. Not of what you want, but of what you're tuned into. Imagine for a moment that existence is like an infinite field of frequencies, each one carrying its own version of reality. One frequency plays a life of struggle, chaos, doubt. Another plays ease, clarity, expansion. And in between, there are thousands more. The field doesn't decide which one you hear. Your tuning does. Your mind is the dial. Your emotions are the amplifier. And your beliefs are the presets. The problem is, no one taught you how to tune. So you've been stuck on a station you didn't even choose, listening to a program that doesn't serve you, wondering why life feels like it's happening to you instead of from you. That's because the frequency you're vibrating at is not aligned with your highest truth. It's aligned with your conditioning. From the moment you were born, your frequency began to take shape, not from conscious choice, but from the energy around you. Your parents' fears, your culture's limitations, the emotional charge of your early experiences, all of it imprinted your subconscious with a certain set of expectations. And those expectations became your baseline frequency. You didn't ask for it, you didn't approve it, but it became your reality. This is how most people live, not by design, but by default. Their subconscious minds are playing a script that was written for them, and they've been tuning into the same emotional station for decades. Fear, lack, doubt, unworthiness. It becomes normal, familiar, even comfortable in a strange way, and the more familiar it becomes, the more it's reinforced. The universe mirrors what you believe, not what you say you want, but what you really believe beneath the surface. That's why trying to change your life with surface-level motivation rarely works. You can visualize a better future, say the right words, even take the right actions. But if the frequency you're broadcasting hasn't changed, you'll keep pulling in the same energy. The dial might move slightly, but it snaps back to default when you're tired, stressed, or distracted. And if that default station is filled with unconscious fear, you'll keep attracting scenarios that validate that fear. Not because you're cursed, not because you're broken, but because that's the signal you're sending. Now here's the part no one wants to admit. Your subconscious mind is programmable, which means it's also hackable. And, over the years, it has been hacked. Not just by people close to you, but by institutions, media, and systems that benefit from you staying in a disempowered frequency. Think about it. What keeps you stuck? Fear of not being enough. Fear of rejection. Fear of failure. Fear of loss. And what do those fears do? They keep you small. They keep you chasing things outside yourself. They keep you plugged into systems that promise safety in exchange for your energy. Advertising exploits this. Education embeds it. Social media amplifies it. The more you engage with these systems without awareness, the more your subconscious accepts their messages as truth. You're not beautiful enough. You're not successful enough. You're running out of time. You're missing out. And without knowing it, your dial gets hijacked. You start living in a reality that is not yours, a reality designed to keep you consuming, conforming, and doubting yourself. But here's the turning point. Just because your frequency was hijacked doesn't mean you can't take it back. You can. The field is neutral. It's not loyal to your fear, it's loyal to your signal. Which means the moment you begin to reprogram your subconscious, the moment you shift your emotional baseline, your entire experience begins to change. Not because the world changes, but because your alignment does. Tuning your frequency is not about pretending you're happy all the time. It's about becoming aware of what you're broadcasting. It's about catching the moments when you slip into inherited fear and choosing something else. It starts with observation. Begin to notice your emotional habits. What thoughts do you return to when things get quiet? What stories play on repeat in your mind? What patterns show up again and again in your relationships, your finances, your body? Once you see them, don't judge them. Observe them like a scientist, because judgment lowers frequency, but awareness raises it. As you observe, you'll start to feel a space opening between you and the program, and in that space, choice is born. That's where the power lives. To reclaim your frequency, you have to create new emotional anchors. You have to train your body to feel a different baseline. Gratitude, confidence, presence, possibility. Not as fleeting moments, but as states of being. This is why daily practice matters, not because it's spiritual homework, but because repetition is how the subconscious learns. Every time you choose to feel differently, even for a few seconds, you're moving the dial. You're tuning to a new station. Breath is a powerful way to do this. When you breathe slowly and deeply, you interrupt the fear response. You calm the nervous system, and in that calm, your field becomes more receptive. Meditation creates space. Visualization creates direction. Affirmation imprints new patterns. But none of them work if you do them like tasks. They only work when you do them as transmissions, from a place of belief, presence, and embodiment. And the beauty is, the field doesn't take long to respond. As soon as your signal shifts, new opportunities begin to appear. The people you attract change. The way you're treated changes. Not because the world has been rearranged, but because your frequency changed the way it interacts with the world. Most people never realize this. They think they have to fight their circumstances. That change comes from struggle. But the truth is, change comes from resonance. When your inner world shifts, the outer world recalibrates. Because the mechanics of the invisible are not theoretical, they're structural. Reality is not a fixed object you're stuck inside. It's a responsive mirror you're shaping with every thought, emotion, and belief you hold. So, ask yourself, what frequency are you living on? What emotional state has become your background music? Are you tuned to fear and wondering why you attract chaos? Are you vibrating in lack and surprised by the constant struggle? If so, it's not because you're failing, it's because you haven't yet taken control of the dial. You can reclaim it, you can choose a different station, you can broadcast a different signal, one that's coherent, one that's aligned, one that's yours. Reality has never been random, it's been tuned. The only question is, who's holding the dial now? Make sure it's you. If you want to know where your life is heading, look at what holds your attention. Not what you say you want. Not the goals scribbled in a notebook. Not the affirmations you repeat once a day. Look at what you feel when no one's watching. Look at where your awareness automatically drifts when you're quiet. Because attention is energy. And the direction of your attention is the direction of your creation. Every time you place your focus on something, you're feeding it. You're breathing life into it. You're sculpting it with your invisible hands. This is not just a metaphor, it's an energetic law. The field doesn't speak English or Spanish or Sanskrit, it speaks frequency. And frequency is determined by attention. Wherever you place your sustained awareness, you're transmitting a signal. The longer you hold that signal, the stronger the blueprint becomes. And the stronger the blueprint becomes, the faster it begins to shape into matter. You're not just reacting to life, You're programming it with every glance, every thought, every emotional loop. But most people don't realize that their attention is their most sacred currency. They spend it the same way they've been trained to spend money, unconsciously, reactively, chasing stimulation. They give it to distraction, to outrage, to fear. They scroll through headlines designed to hijack their nervous system. They consume content that reinforces limitation. They absorb opinions that contradict their inner knowing. And they wonder why their life feels chaotic, out of sync, or stagnant. It's not fate, it's feedback. The field is simply responding to a fragmented broadcast. Inner focus is the remedy. Not the kind of focus that comes from grinding or forcing, but the kind that arises from presence, from choosing, moment by moment, to bring your awareness back to what matters. To stop letting your energy leak through every open window of doubt, and begin sealing those cracks with clarity. Focus is not just a mental exercise, it's a spiritual act. It's the moment you stop reacting to the world and begin shaping it from within. Presence is the purest form of power, because when you are truly present, you're not fragmented, you're not chasing the future or looping the past, you're here, now. And in that state, your energy is whole. When your energy is whole, it's coherent. And when it's coherent, it's magnetic. You become a tuning fork for the reality you desire, not by force, but by frequency. Most of what people call meditation is really just practice in reclaiming attention. It's not about emptying the mind, it's about learning to direct it, gently, consistently. When you sit in stillness, when you observe the breath, when you watch a single thought without chasing it, you are training the muscle that creates worlds. You're practicing mastery over the one thing that truly determines your trajectory, your focus. Every master throughout history knew this. They didn't waste energy on things they couldn't control. They didn't dilute their presence trying to fix the outer world. They refined their inner world until it became so powerful, so tuned, that the outer had no choice but to reorganize. This wasn't magic, it was mechanics. It was the understanding that attention, when sustained, becomes a sculptor's chisel, carving form out of the invisible. You've already seen this in your own life. Think back to the moments when everything clicked, when you were so immersed in what you were doing that time dissolved. When you lost track of worry, comparison, doubt, when all that existed was the task, the breath, the rhythm. That state wasn't random, it was alignment. In those moments, your energy stopped scattering and started flowing in one direction. And that flow opened doors you didn't even know existed. Now imagine what would happen if you lived like that on purpose, if you stopped waiting for focus to happen and started choosing it. If you stopped feeding your attention to things that deplete you, and started investing it in what lights you up, not just occasionally, but relentlessly. What would your life become if you treated every moment as an altar to your intention? Because that's what it is. Every moment you're alive is an altar, and your attention is the offering. The most powerful people on earth aren't the loudest. They're the ones who have mastered their focus, who know that every emotion, every thought, every choice is a direction, and they move with precision. Not because they're perfect, but because they've stopped outsourcing their power. They know that presence isn't just peaceful, it's creative. When you're present, you become aware of the field. You begin to feel the subtle shifts in energy. You notice when something aligns and when it doesn't. You hear the guidance that gets lost in noise. You move not from reaction, but from resonance. This is the real discipline. Not control over the outer world, but control over your awareness. Can you hold your attention on gratitude when the world offers fear? Can you stay present with your breath when chaos swirls around you? Can you bring your awareness back to your vision even when nothing around you seems to support it? This isn't easy, but it's worth everything, because focus compounds. The more you return to presence, the stronger your signal becomes. The stronger your signal becomes, the more the field mirrors it. That's when manifestation begins to feel effortless. Not because you're doing more, but because you're being more aligned, more conscious, more deliberate. You'll notice that people start responding differently to you. Not because you've changed your personality, but because your energy has shifted. You're no longer vibrating in reaction to the world, you're emitting a frequency that bends it. You speak less, but your words carry more weight. You take fewer actions, but they have greater impact. You stop chasing results and start attracting them, not from ego, but from alignment. This is the power of inner focus, and it's available to you right now. You don't need to go anywhere, you don't need to fix anything, you simply need to decide that your attention is sacred, that your focus is your prayer, that your presence is your power. Right now, in this breath, you can return to that power. You can choose to withdraw your energy from all the places that drain you and pour it back into what truly matters. You can let go of the illusion that life is happening to you, and remember that it's happening through you. And when you remember that, when you live from that, the world around you doesn't just change, it rearranges itself to meet the frequency you're holding. You've been shaping reality all along. The only question now is, what are you focusing on? You've been shaping reality your entire life, even if you didn't know it. Every thought, every emotional reaction, every belief you held tightly enough, every story you repeated in your mind, they've all been signals, instructions, blueprints. You were never just a character in the story. You were also the author, the director, and the stage. But when you don't realize this, when no one teaches you how the mechanics of consciousness actually work, you start to feel like everything is happening to you. You begin to see yourself as a victim of life's chaos, tossed around by unseen forces, trapped by circumstance. That illusion is easy to believe when your creations are unconscious. But once you understand how it works, you can no longer look at your pain the same way. You realize it wasn't punishment, it was feedback. The universe has never been against you, it's been responding to you, not just to your words or desires, but to your dominant energy. And energy, when scattered, creates distortion. Most people think they're not creating their life because their desires haven't manifested, but desire alone is not the blueprint. Intention without coherence creates noise. Emotion without awareness generates loops. If your thoughts want one thing, your emotions expect another, and your beliefs contradict both, the field around you doesn't know what to reflect back. It mirrors the strongest and most consistent signal, not the one you wish for, but the one you embody. This is where suffering comes in, not as some divine punishment, but as the natural outcome of misaligned creation. You wanted connection, but you feared betrayal. You dreamed of freedom, but you believed you weren't worthy of ease. You hoped for success, but you carried guilt about having more. So the field responded. It reflected your internal contradiction with external confusion. It wasn't cruelty. It was precision. That's a hard truth to swallow, because it means that a lot of the pain you've endured wasn't random. But it's also the most liberating truth you'll ever encounter. Because if you created it, even without knowing, then you can uncreate it, you can redesign it, you can take back the role you never stopped playing, the architect. Becoming deliberate isn't about control. It's not about forcing life to bend to your ego's will. It's about stepping into energetic responsibility. It's about recognizing that your vibration speaks louder than your words, that your inner alignment is more important than your outer action, that the most important work you'll ever do won't be seen by anyone but you. The mind loves to blame. It wants a villain. It wants a reason. It wants to project pain outward so it doesn't have to sit with the truth that something inside us allowed it. But every time we do that, we give our power away. Blame is easy, but it's expensive. It costs you your sovereignty. It chains you to a version of yourself that can't change until the world around you does. And that's backwards. Because it's never been about the world first. It's always been about energy. Your energy. You weren't taught this. You were trained to react, to seek approval, to follow rules that don't resonate. You were handed identities you didn't choose. You were told to be realistic, to stay small, to keep your desires quiet, and maybe you obeyed. Maybe you tried to shrink your light just enough to survive, but even then, you were creating. Even then, your energy was shaping your outcomes. You can't not create. You can only create unconsciously, or consciously. That's the shift this chapter offers you. The chance to become conscious, to move from passive participant to active sculptor. to stop interpreting life through the lens of what's been done to you and start seeing what's being done through you. The obstacles, the patterns, the cycles, they're not punishments, they're signals. They're invitations. They're showing you where your signal is unclear, where your beliefs are outdated, where your emotions have been left unprocessed and are now showing up as physical results. When you begin to accept that, your entire relationship to challenge changes. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" you ask, "What is this reflecting about me?" Not as self-blame, but as empowerment, not as guilt, but as initiation. Because life isn't trying to break you, it's trying to wake you. Every heartbreak, every failure, every moment that felt like defeat was a mirror, a frequency check, a nudge from the field asking, "Are you still choosing this? Is this still your truth? Or are you ready to shift?" That readiness is the turning point. It's when you stop looking for permission to rise. It's when you stop waiting for the outer world to confirm your worth. You decide, you align. You remember that nothing out there holds power over your creation unless you allow it, and that memory changes everything. From that space, creation becomes natural. You don't have to force outcomes anymore. You simply become the frequency of what you desire, and life reflects it. You hold the vibration of love, and love appears. You embody the energy of clarity, and doors open. You live in the truth of abundance, and resources begin to flow. Not because you're lucky, but because the architect within you is finally awake. This doesn't mean life becomes perfect. It means it becomes responsive, fluid, aligned. You'll still have contrast. You'll still encounter resistance. But now, you'll meet it with presence. You'll use it as data. You'll refine your vibration, not panic in its absence. You'll know that every glitch in your reality is a signpost, not a setback. And with that knowing, fear loses its grip. Because what is fear, really, if not the illusion that you have no power, that you are separate from the intelligence of creation, that life is random and you're at its mercy? That illusion is dissolving now. Not because someone saved you, but because you remembered. You remembered that you are the signal. You are the frequency. You are the one who shapes the field with your presence, your focus, your intention. There's no need to punish yourself for what you didn't know. There's only now, only this moment, only this breath, and in this breath, you can begin again. You can tune your frequency with precision. You can claim your power without apology. You can rewrite the blueprint of your life, not from desperation, but from clarity. You are not broken. You are not behind. You are not a victim of circumstance. You are a builder of realities, a master of frequency. And the more you remember that, the more effortless creation becomes. Not because life bends to your will, but because you finally align with the version of yourself who never forgot how to bend reality with your being. The architect is not separate from you, it is you, always has been. And now that you see it, what will you design next? You've been told your thoughts create reality, but that's only part of the truth. It's not the thought alone that bends the fabric of your life. It's the energy wrapped inside it. It's the emotion, the feeling, the frequency behind the thought. Because a thought without emotion is like a spark without fuel. It flickers, maybe even lights something for a moment, but it doesn't sustain. It doesn't imprint. It doesn't collapse probability into form. If you want to move matter, you have to feel what you think. You have to wrap your vision in a frequency so strong, so coherent, that the field around you begins to organize itself in response. This is the forgotten alchemy. 19. Emotion-infused thought as a force of creation. You're not just thinking into a void, you're thinking into a field that's alive, responsive, electric. Every time you visualize something, you are sending out instructions. But the clarity of those instructions depends on whether your emotion is matching your intention. You can't think abundance and feel lack. You can't visualize love and feel unworthy. You can't ask for freedom while vibrating in fear. The field doesn't respond to what you want, it responds to what you are, and what you are is determined by the dominant feeling state you carry. This is where mysticism and science converge. Quantum physics has already proven that the observer affects the outcome. That reality is not fixed until consciousness interacts with it. At the subatomic level, particles behave like waves of possibility, infinite outcomes, infinite timelines. But once observed, once focused upon with intention, those waves collapse into a specific form. That collapse is not random. It is influenced by the energy of the observer, and that energy is not just brain activity, it's the full spectrum of what you're feeling, believing, and transmitting. In mysticism, this was never a theory, it was lived truth. Ancient initiates knew that their inner state determined what they would experience externally. They didn't need a particle accelerator to validate that. They worked with the subtle energies directly. When they performed ritual or meditation, they weren't begging some outside force. They were aligning their inner frequency with the desired outcome. They understood that thought was the blueprint, but emotion was the activator, the bridge between the unformed and the formed. To create a coherent emotional broadcast, you have to become brutally honest about what you're actually feeling. Not what you think you should feel, not what you pretend to feel, but what you're carrying beneath the surface. Most people try to manifest from the mind while completely disconnected from the heart. They visualize wealth while feeling desperate. They speak affirmations while carrying resentment. They dream of love while harboring abandonment. And then, they wonder why nothing moves, why the field doesn't respond. It's not because manifestation doesn't work, it's because they're emitting mixed signals. The field can only reflect coherence, not contradiction. This is why emotional alignment is everything. When your thoughts, emotions, and beliefs are in harmony, your energy becomes a laser, focused, penetrating, capable of cutting through the static and reaching the blueprint layer of reality. That's when doors open without effort. That's when people show up at the right moment. That's when the impossible starts feeling normal. Because you've stopped broadcasting noise and started transmitting signal. To reach that level, you must learn how to feel the outcome before it arrives. Not just imagine it, but embody it. This isn't about pretending. It's not about faking it. It's about creating the internal state that matches the version of you who already has what you're calling in. If you want peace, you must first become the frequency of peace. If you want abundance, you must feel abundant in your breath, in your actions, in your choices. If you want deep love, you must radiate the energy of someone who already knows they are whole. This is not spiritual bypassing. This is energetic accuracy. You're not ignoring your current reality, you're choosing not to reinforce it. You're choosing to broadcast from the frequency of your desired outcome, knowing that the field has no choice but to eventually reflect that coherence. This requires consistency. It requires inner discipline. You can't dip into a high-frequency state for 5 minutes and expect lasting transformation. You must return to it, again and again, until it becomes your new baseline. This is where the nervous system comes in. Your ability to hold a coherent emotional frequency is directly linked to how regulated your body is. If your system is flooded with cortisol, if your breath is shallow, if your heart is clenched, your energy will be fragmented. You won't be able to hold the signal. That's why embodiment practices matter. Breathwork, stillness, movement. Anything that brings you into alignment with the body, because your body is the instrument that broadcasts your frequency. You cannot transmit clearly from a dysregulated state. So the real work becomes this: regulate the body, align the mind, and charge your thoughts with the emotion of your desired reality. Do this daily, relentlessly. Not because you're trying to force the universe, but because you're becoming the version of you who no longer needs to try. You're not faking, you're not hoping, you're being. The field notices that. It notices when you shift from wanting to knowing, from wishing to embodying. That's when it begins to organize matter around you. That's when events accelerate. Not because you chased them, but because you anchored into the frequency that matched them. This is how you reshape matter. Matter 80, from the inside out. You begin by recognizing that every thought you think is an instruction, but that instruction only takes shape when it's infused with emotional clarity. A thought without feeling is like trying to sculpt clay without touching it. You have to press, shape, mold. That's what your emotion does. It gives texture to your intention, it gives depth to your vision. And the deeper the emotion, the more powerful the broadcast. But be mindful, not all emotion creates coherence. Fear is an emotion, so is shame. If those are the dominant feelings behind your thoughts, the field will still respond, but it will reflect the distorted frequency. That's why inner healing is not separate from manifestation. It's the foundation. If you're carrying emotional trauma that contradicts your vision, it will override your conscious intention. The field doesn't care what you say, it reflects what you are. So do the work. Feel what's unprocessed. Integrate the parts of you that are stuck in lower frequencies. Love them, not because they're wrong, but because they've been trying to protect you. Once you bring them into coherence, your energy becomes unstoppable, not because it's louder, but because it's clear. This is the bridge between science and spirit, between thought and form, between possibility and manifestation, and it runs through your emotional frequency. You've always had the power to shift matter, but now you know how. Not by effort, but by alignment, not by force, but by coherence. So ask yourself, what am I thinking? What am I feeling? And do they match the world I say I want? If they don't, that's not failure, that's feedback. And you can change the signal at any time. There comes a point on the path where you stop asking, why didn't anyone tell me this? And you start asking, who benefits from me not knowing this? That question alone cracks the illusion wide open. Because the knowledge you're learning now, that you are energy, that your mind is a transmitter, that your reality is a mirror of your frequency, it's not new, it's ancient. Older than every institution you've ever trusted. It's been passed down in symbols, in whispered traditions, in hidden texts encoded with metaphor to keep the truth alive without exposing it directly. Not because the truth is too dangerous for you to hold, but because it's too powerful for them to lose control over. For generations, systems have been built on your confusion. Institutions of power thrive when you doubt yourself. Economies grow when you feel inadequate. Political structures become stronger when you feel afraid. Religion becomes more necessary when you believe God is somewhere outside of you. The entire world you see around you, the one that tells you to obey, to consume, to follow, and never question, is built on a single foundation: your disconnection. If you knew who you really were, what you're capable of, what energy you command, what frequency you hold, the whole thing would collapse. Control doesn't work on the awakened. You can't be manipulated when you trust your inner signal more than external noise. You can't be herded when you know you're sovereign. You don't beg for crumbs of validation when you remember you are the source of value itself. That's dangerous to systems designed to harvest your attention. And make no mistake, your attention is the most valuable currency in this world. Your energy is the resource they're mining, and fear is the tool they use to extract it. Fear is sticky. It keeps you reactive. It short-circuits your clarity. When you're in fear, you become easy to direct, not because you're weak, but because fear collapses your awareness into survival. And when you're in survival, you're not thinking about creating. You're not tuning your frequency. You're not remembering your power. You're looking for safety. And when safety feels scarce, you'll trade almost anything for it. Your freedom, your intuition, your vision. The system counts on this. It knows that fear lowers your vibration, that a low vibration clouds your discernment, that when you're vibrating in guilt, shame, anxiety, or desperation, you'll grasp for answers from someone else, instead of listening to the wisdom within. You'll give your power away willingly, thinking you're being saved, when really, you're being subdued. This is why the knowledge was hidden, not to protect you, but to protect them from you. Because once you remember that everything is energy, and that energy obeys your consciousness, you become uncontrollable. You stop playing the roles they wrote for you. You stop chasing external worth. You begin to create instead of comply. And creation is rebellion. Not because it's violent, but because it doesn't need permission. This is why ancient teachings were buried beneath dogma, why sacred texts were edited, reinterpreted, repackaged through the lens of fear. Why mysticism was labeled heresy, and inner knowing was branded as madness. The suppression wasn't about truth, it was about power, and that power only exists when you forget who you are. But you're not crazy, you're waking up, and waking up, at first, feels like madness, because suddenly, everything you were taught to trust begins to shake. You look around and start to see the cracks in the narrative, the way the media distorts, the way education conditions, the way culture numbs. It's dizzying, unsettling. You may even try to go back to sleep, to fit in, to forget what you've seen. But you can't, not fully, because something inside you has shifted. The veil is too thin now, and what's behind it is too real. The voices that once held authority over you start to lose their weight. The fears that once gripped you begin to dissolve. You start noticing your thoughts, your emotions, your patterns. You begin to ask, is this mine, or was it given to me? That one question opens the floodgates. You see how much of your identity was built from programs, inherited beliefs, generational trauma, media scripts, societal pressure, and you start to dismantle it, not out of rebellion, but out of truth. The truth is, you've always had access to this knowledge. It's been encoded in your cells, whispered in your dreams, hidden in plain sight. Every ancient culture knew it. They built entire civilizations around the understanding that the universe is a living field, that you are part of that field, and that your consciousness is a key. But that wisdom was gradually replaced with systems that centralized power, that took divinity out of you and placed it in the hands of the few. You were never meant to be dependent. You were never meant to ask for permission to feel powerful, to heal, to create, to know. But they taught you to shrink, to doubt, to obey. And you believed it, not because you were weak, but because you were young, open, trusting. That trust was weaponized, and now you're reclaiming it. Reclaiming your energy isn't just about visualization or mantras, it's about sovereignty, it's about responsibility, it's about deciding that your frequency matters more than their script, that your alignment is more important than their approval, that your clarity is sacred, even if it makes others uncomfortable. Because clarity disrupts confusion, and your clarity will make you unrecognizable to the systems that once fed off your fog. The moment you begin to ask deeper questions, the moment you begin to choose presence over programming, curiosity over conformity, 9, you start sending a new signal into the field. One that says, I remember who I am. That signal is not subtle, it shakes things, it pulls you out of timelines you didn't belong in. It collapses illusions, and yes, sometimes it gets lonely. Sometimes the path gets narrow, but that's only because few are willing to walk in truth, not because the truth is hidden, but because it demands everything that is false to fall away. And it is falling away, one layer at a time. The world is changing, not because someone outside is fixing it, but because people like you are waking up from the inside. And every time you reclaim a piece of yourself, every time you tune into your own frequency, instead of absorbing someone else's, the field shifts. The grid of human consciousness becomes clearer, stronger, more alive with truth. This is why your awakening matters. It's not just personal, it's structural. Your clarity is medicine. Your vibration is a blueprint. Your remembering is a revolution. So don't let the noise pull you back. Don't let the fear programs confuse you. Don't mistake your rising awareness for delusion. You're not breaking down, you're breaking free. And yes, it was hidden, but not anymore. Now it's yours, and what you do with it will echo into the world around you, in ways you may never fully see, but will always be felt. You were never crazy, you were coded for awakening. There comes a moment when information becomes transformation. When what you've learned stops living in your mind and begins reshaping the field around you. When it's no longer just theory or curiosity or possibility, but embodiment. And in that moment, you stop waiting for change, you become it. That's what happens when you begin living the true blueprint to bend reality. It's not mystical anymore. It's mechanical, precise, repeatable, but also irreversible. Because once you step into the level of energetic clarity this requires, you will never again be able to pretend you're powerless. This blueprint isn't complicated. In fact, it's almost too simple for the mind to accept, but its simplicity is what makes it powerful. It begins with knowing, not believing, not hoping, knowing. A deep, cellular, undeniable recognition that you are not a passive receiver of life, you are the projector, the architect, the transmitter. Knowing is the first pillar because it creates the foundation. You must know that the energy moving through you is not separate from the energy that forms the world around you. The breath you take, the thought you think, the feeling you feel, these are the raw materials of reality. If you don't know this deeply and consistently, everything you attempt will be laced with doubt. And doubt fractures energy, but knowing alone isn't enough. The second key is will. You must direct your energy with focused, sustained intent. This is not about force. It's not about straining or pushing or over-efforting. Will is alignment in motion. It is the inner decision to hold your frequency no matter what the outside world presents. To continue broadcasting clarity even when results seem delayed. Will is the bridge between your vision and your reality. It's the energetic spine that keeps your signal steady. Without it, your knowing stays inert. It drifts. It never lands. Then comes alignment. Alignment is where knowing and will meet the body, the breath, the actions, the nervous system. It's the point where your thoughts, your emotions, your physical state, and your choices all begin to harmonize into one coherent message to the field. Alignment isn't perfection, it's congruence. It's being internally unified. When your body speaks one thing, your emotions another, and your words something else, the field mirrors confusion. But when your entire system is resonating in sync, there is no delay. The field doesn't resist that kind of clarity. It obeys it. This is the formula: know plus will plus align is equals to shift. Now here's how you apply it. Daily, consciously, energetically. You begin each day by remembering. Before you check your phone, before you dive into the world's noise, you center yourself in your own frequency. This can be through breath, meditation, stillness, visualization, 1912, whatever method anchors you into presence. But you don't skip this. You start your day as a broadcaster, not a receiver. You remind yourself that your inner state is what creates the external. You don't chase clarity, you generate it. From there, you clarify your signal. You decide, with full emotional presence, what frequency you are transmitting today. Are you holding the frequency of abundance, of confidence, of love? This isn't just about thinking the word. It's about feeling it, embodying it, and choosing to carry that state in your breath, your voice, your posture, your choices. This is your command to the field. This is the message you are writing into the invisible. Throughout the day, you track your coherence. You notice where you begin to fracture. When fear creeps in, when you react, when old patterns resurface, you pause. Not to shame yourself, but to realign. You breathe. You reconnect to the original frequency. You adjust your posture, your tone, your focus. You recalibrate. This is energetic hygiene. It's how you keep your transmission clean. You speak from the signal. Your words are not fillers, they are activations. Every sentence you speak carries a vibration. When you talk about your goals, your emotions, your circumstances, you're casting spells. You're writing scripts that the universe reads and reflects. So you choose your language like a sculptor chooses their tools. Not to manipulate others, but to stay in resonance with your own field. You move with precision. Every action becomes a reflection of the frequency you're holding. If your signal is abundance, you don't act from scarcity. If your signal is love, you don't act from fear. This doesn't mean you won't feel resistance. It means you override that resistance with clarity. You take steps that confirm your broadcast, not contradict it. And every time you do, the field responds with more evidence that you are, in fact, creating this. And finally, at the end of the day, you seal your energy. You reflect not with judgment, but with awareness. You ask, where was I aligned? Where did I fracture? What did I transmit? This is how you refine your signal. You learn to listen not just to your thoughts, but to the quality of your vibration. You begin to feel when your energy is sharp, clear, and magnetic. and when it's scattered, diluted, and weak, you become a master of your own frequency. But with this power comes something no one tells you at the beginning. Once you begin this work, you cannot go back. Not truly, not comfortably, because now, you know that you're the one creating the signal that shapes your life. You know that you're not a victim of circumstance, but a transmitter of it. And that kind of knowledge removes your ability to blame. It takes away the option to unconsciously coast through your days. That's the warning. Once you've seen the blueprint, you can't unsee it. Once you've felt the power of coherence, the chaos of misalignment becomes unbearable. The old games don't work anymore. The old excuses lose their power. You'll feel it every time you step out of alignment, not as punishment, but as friction, as static in the field. Because now you've touched the truth of who and what you are, and your soul won't let you forget. But here's the promise. If you stay with it, if you keep refining, keep remembering, keep choosing alignment even when it's inconvenient, your life will become unrecognizable. Not because you forced it, but because you tuned it. You'll look around and realize that you didn't chase success, you became the frequency of it. You didn't beg for love, you became the embodiment of it. You didn't hope for miracles, you walked as one. The blueprint is not locked in some ancient vault, it's already inside you, waiting, whispering, guiding you back to the truth. You are the signal, and reality is already listening.